I inherited $41 million from a grandmother I barely knew. Before I told a single soul, I needed to find out who actually loved me and who just loved what I could give them. So I sat in the waiting area of a 24-hour auto repair shop at 11 o'clock on a freezing Wednesday night and made 3 phone calls that would permanently split my life into before and after. My name is Elena. I am 31 years old, and I work as a veterinary technician at a small animal clinic about 40 minutes outside of Chicago. Before I keep going, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from right now. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever discovered that a complete stranger cared more about you than the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. Growing up, my family looked perfect from the outside. Big house in a gated subdivision, matching Christmas sweaters for the annual photo card. A sparkling boat docked at the lake house every summer. But inside those walls, there was a very clear ranking system, and I was always dead last. My mother, Vivian, ran our household the way a CEO runs a Fortune 500 company. Image was everything. My older brother, Derek, was her pride and joy. State champion quarterback, business degree from Northwestern, now a partner at a commercial real estate firm pulling in serious money. My younger sister, Brooke, was the social butterfly. Sorority president, gorgeous, married to a hedge fund analyst named Grant at 24. And then there was me, the quiet one who preferred animals over people, the girl who skipped prom to bottle feed an orphaned kitten. The daughter Vivian, introduced at dinner parties as my middle child. She works with animals, the way someone might say she collects parking tickets. Everything changed 6 weeks ago. I got a certified letter from an estate attorney in Savannah, Georgia. My father's mother, Grandma Lucille, had passed away at 92. I had only met her a handful of times because my mother had essentially cut off that entire side of the family decades ago. Lucille was apparently a very private woman who had quietly built an enormous fortune through commercial real estate investments across the Southeast. She left almost everything to a charitable foundation, but she carved out one specific inheritance just for me, $41 million after taxes, held in a private trust. The letter said she had followed my life from a distance. She told the attorney I was the only grandchild who ever sent her a birthday card without being asked. I sat on that letter for 2 full weeks. I did not tell anyone. I did not change a single thing about my daily routine. I kept driving my dented 12-year-old Honda to the clinic every morning. I kept eating instant ramen for dinner 3 nights a week. Because before I touched a single dollar of that money, I needed to run one final test on the people who called themselves my family. I picked a Wednesday night because I knew exactly where everyone would be. My mother would be home reviewing the seating chart for Brooke's upcoming baby shower, which she had been planning like a royal wedding for the past 4 months. Derek would be unwinding after work, and Brooke would be at home with Grant. I drove to the auto shop on Route 34, parked in the fluorescent-lit waiting room, and pulled out my phone. I called my mother first. She picked up on the 3rd ring, already sounding irritated. "Elena, what is it?" "I am in the middle of finalizing the centerpiece arrangements for Brooke's shower." I forced a trembling, panicked edge into my voice. "Mom, I need help. My car broke down on Route 34, and the mechanic says the transmission is completely shot. He is telling me it will cost $2,200 to fix it, and I do not have that kind of money right now. My rent is due on Friday, and I already used my savings for my student loan payment last week. I cannot get to work without my car. If I miss shifts, I will lose my job. Please, Mom, I am begging you. Can you lend me the money? I will pay back every cent." There was a long pause. I could hear the faint rustle of paper samples in the background. "Elena, I am not an ATM machine. You are 31 years old. If you had chosen a real career instead of playing nurse to stray cats, you would not be calling me in a panic over a car repair. I just spent $14,000 securing the botanical garden venue for Brooke's shower, and your brother needs me to co-sign a loan for his new lake property next week. I simply cannot keep funding your inability to plan ahead." My chest tightened, even though I had expected exactly this. "Mom, I literally cannot get to work. I will lose my income." "Then take the bus. Or ask one of your coworkers for a ride. I have to go. The florist is calling on the other line. The call ended. I stared at the dark phone screen for a long moment before dialing Derek. He answered quickly, his voice loose and relaxed. I could hear a basketball game playing in the background. Hey, what's up? I repeated the same desperate story. Car dead. $2,200. Cannot get to work. Begging for a short-term loan. Derek let out a long, exaggerated sigh. Elena, come on. I literally just put a deposit down on a lake house. Do you know what waterfront property costs right now? I am stretched thin. And honestly, this is exactly why Mom always says you need to get your finances together. You should have been saving for emergencies instead of spending money on that animal rescue stuff you are always doing. Derek, I volunteer at the rescue. I do not spend money there. I donate my time. Well, maybe donate less time and pick up a second job. I cannot help you right now. Sorry. He hung up. 2 for 2. I took a deep breath and called Brooke. She answered with music thumping in the background. Hey, what do you need? Grant and I are about to start a movie. I told her the same story one more time. By now my fake desperation felt mechanical, but I kept the tremble in my voice consistent. Brooke was quiet for about 5 seconds. Okay, so, here is the thing, Elena. Grant and I are saving aggressively right now because of the baby. And honestly, you always seem to have some kind of crisis. Last year it was your apartment deposit. The year before that it was your wisdom teeth. At some point you have to stop leaning on other people and figure out how to stand on your own. I love you, but I cannot keep being your backup plan. She had never lent me a single dollar in her life. Not once. But she delivered that rejection as though she had been bankrolling my existence for years. Brooke, I have to go. Good luck with the car thing. 3 calls. 3 rejections. I was not surprised, but hearing it confirmed out loud still carved something out of me. My own mother, brother, and sister would not lend me $2,200 in what they believed was a genuine emergency. My mother had just dropped $14,000 on flower arrangements for a baby shower, but a transmission repair was too much to ask. I was ready to drive home and start making plans with my attorney in the morning. But then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Rosa. Rosa was Derek's wife. She was a first-generation Mexican-American woman who had grown up in a tiny apartment in Pilsen with 4 siblings and a single mother who cleaned office buildings at night. She had put herself through nursing school on scholarships and sheer determination, and now she worked as a labor and delivery nurse at one of the biggest hospitals in Chicago. She was quiet, kind, and perpetually exhausted. My family treated her like the hired help at every gathering. Her text read, Elena, Derek told me your car broke down. Are you okay? Are you safe right now? Where are you? I texted back. I am at the repair shop on Route 34. I am fine, just stuck. The fix is $2,200 and I cannot cover it. My phone rang instantly. Rosa's voice was breathless and worried. Do not move. I just got off a 14-hour shift, but I am getting in my car right now. I have some cash in my emergency envelope at home. Let me stop there first and I will come straight to you. Rosa, it is almost midnight. You just worked 14 hours. You do not have to do this. Elena, you are sitting alone at a repair shop in the middle of the night. Of course I have to do this. Give me 45 minutes. Exactly 38 minutes later, a beat-up silver minivan pulled into the repair shop parking lot. Rosa climbed out wearing wrinkled scrubs and sneakers with the laces untied. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she had that deep, bone-level tiredness in her eyes that nurses get after back-to-back shifts. She walked straight up to me and hugged me so hard I almost lost my balance. She pressed a thick white envelope into my hands. I opened it. Inside was a stack of 20s, 10s, and 5s. Some of the bills were crumpled. A few had tiny pencil marks on them, like she had been counting and recounting them. There is 1,600 in there, Rosa said quickly, rubbing her hands together against the cold. It is everything I had saved from picking up extra weekend shifts. I know it is not enough for the full repair, but I already called my friend Carmen, who does bookkeeping for a mechanic in Cicero. She said she can get you a major discount on the labor if we bring the car there tomorrow morning. Between my cash and the discount, we should be able to cover the whole thing. I stared at the money in my hands. $1,600. For Rosa, that was not just cash. I knew exactly what that money represented. Derek controlled their household finances with an iron grip. He gave Rosa a strict weekly budget and monitored their joint checking account like a hawk. This emergency envelope was her secret lifeline, the only money in the world that was truly hers. And she had just handed me every single dollar of it without a second of hesitation. Rosa, I said carefully, Derek monitors your spending. If he finds out you gave me this money, he will not find out, she interrupted firmly, but I caught the flicker of fear that crossed her face. I will figure it out. I always figure it out. What matters right now is that you can get to work on Monday. I tried to hand the envelope back. She physically blocked my hands and stepped away. Please just take it, Elena. You are the only person in that family who has ever treated me like a real human being. When I first started dating Derek and your mother made that comment about me at Thanksgiving, do you remember what you did? I remembered. Vivian had loudly asked Derek, in front of the entire extended family, whether Rosa's mother had proper immigration documents. I was 23 years old. I stood up from the table and told my mother that, if she ever disrespected Rosa's family again, I would leave and never come back to another holiday dinner. Vivian laughed it off. Derek told me to calm down, but Rosa never forgot it. She looked at me with those exhausted, determined eyes. You stood up for me when nobody else in that family would. This $1,600 is the least I can do. I could not push the lie any further. I needed to end the test before she sacrificed anything else. I gently took both of her freezing hands in mine. Rosa, I need to tell you something very important, and I need you to listen carefully. My car is not actually broken. The transmission is perfectly fine. I made up the emergency tonight because I needed to know who in my family would actually show up for me when I had nothing to offer in return. Rosa blinked at me, confusion flooding her tired face. I inherited a very large amount of money from my grandmother. I will tell you the details soon. But right now, what I need you to know is that you were the only one. My mother, Derek, and Brooke all said no. You drove across the city after a 14-hour shift and handed me your secret savings. You are the only real family I have. Rosa stared at me for a long time. Then she let out a shaky breath, and her eyes filled with tears. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of being truly seen by another person. I handed her envelope back. Take this. Keep it safe. And I promise you, everything is about to change. I drove Rosa home that night and began making phone calls to the trust attorney in Savannah the next morning. Within a week, I had assembled the team I needed: a forensic accountant, a private investigator, and a corporate attorney in Chicago who specialized in asset protection and hostile financial restructuring. I gave them 3 targets: my mother Vivian, my brother Derek, and my sister Brooke's husband, Grant. I told them to find everything. Every lie, every hidden debt, every forged document, every dirty secret buried under the surface of my family's perfect image. The results came back in 12 days, and they were devastating. Derek, the golden son, the supposed financial genius, had been hemorrhaging money for 3 years. He had developed a severe addiction to high-risk day trading and leveraged crypto positions. He had blown through his entire retirement fund, both personal savings accounts and his share of the family investment portfolio. When he ran out of his own money, he panicked. Using his position as the executor of my mother's living trust, he had secretly taken out a $450,000 second mortgage on Vivian's house by forging her signature on the loan documents. He had also opened 2 credit lines totaling another $170,000 using her Social Security number. He was already 4 months behind on payments. The bank had issued a final notice of foreclosure. Derek had been intercepting Vivian's mail for months to keep her in the dark. But the worst part was what he was doing to Rosa. He had rerouted her entire hospital paycheck through direct deposit into a private brokerage account solely in his name. Rosa thought her money was going into their joint savings. It was actually funding his catastrophic trading losses. He gave her a cash allowance of $80 a week and made her justify every purchase. When she asked to visit her mother in Pilsen, he told her the gas was too expensive. When she wanted to take a continuing education course to advance her nursing career, he said they could not afford it. He had been systematically draining her financially and isolating her from every support system she had. Brooke's situation was almost worse in a different way. Her husband Grant, the hedge fund analyst who wore designer watches and drove a Mercedes, was not actually working at a hedge fund anymore. He had been quietly fired 8 months ago for violating compliance regulations. He had been pretending to go to work every morning, driving to a coffee shop, and spending the day trading on his personal laptop, badly. He and Brooke were living entirely on credit. They had racked up over $300,000 in debt across 11 credit cards, all in Brooke's name. Grant had been opening accounts using her information, without telling her the full extent of the balances. Their luxury apartment lease was 2 months behind, and the $14,000 baby shower that my mother was so proudly planning was being funded by a credit card that was 48 hours from hitting its limit. And my mother Vivian, the grand matriarch who turned her nose up at my $2,200 request, was about to be homeless and bankrupt because of the son she worshipped, and she had absolutely no idea. I had everything I needed. Now I needed the right stage. My mother's annual holiday gathering was 3 weeks away. Every December, Vivian hosted a massive dinner at her house for extended family, neighbors, and her country club circle. It was her crowning event of the year, the night she performed her role as the elegant, wealthy, generous matriarch. I RSVP'd yes and told her I would bring a dessert. The night of the dinner, I arrived early. Rosa was already in the kitchen, as usual, doing all the actual cooking, while Vivian supervised from a bar stool with a glass of Pinot Grigio. Brooke was in the living room, showing off her baby bump to a circle of admiring guests. Derek was holding court by the fireplace, loudly telling a story about his latest property acquisition. Grant was nodding along, playing the role of the successful Wall Street husband. I walked in wearing a simple black dress I had owned for 3 years. Vivian looked me up and down immediately. "Elena, I told you this was a formal dinner. You could have at least made an effort." "I think I look fine, Mom." She waved me toward the kitchen. "Go help Rosa with the appetizers. She has been moving too slowly today." I went into the kitchen and squeezed Rosa's hand. She looked nervous. I had briefed her 2 days earlier about what I had discovered and what was about to happen. She was terrified but resolute. She had agreed to trust me completely. Dinner was served. 22 people sat around Vivian's enormous dining table, which was decorated with fresh flowers and actual silver candlesticks. The conversation was loud and self-congratulatory. Derek bragged about his new lake house deposit. Brooke announced that she and Grant were considering a move to a bigger apartment in Lincoln Park. Vivian beamed at both of them with radiant maternal pride. About 40 minutes into the meal, Vivian stood up and clinked her wine glass with a butter knife. The table fell silent. "I want to take a moment to express how grateful I am for this beautiful family," she began, her voice warm and practiced. "Derek, you continue to make us all so proud with your incredible success in real estate. Brooke, you and Grant are building such a wonderful life, and I cannot wait to welcome my first grandchild. This family is proof that hard work and good values always pay off." She paused and looked directly at me. "And Elena, I hope this year you will finally start thinking about your future more seriously. You are not getting any younger, and the veterinary assistant path has a very low ceiling." A few of the guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I smiled politely and let the silence hang for just a beat. "Actually, Mom, since you brought up the topic of financial futures, I think tonight is the perfect time to have a family conversation about that." Vivian frowned. "This is not the time or place for one of your little speeches, Elena." "I think it is." I reached into my bag and pulled out a large manila envelope. I set it on the table directly in front of my mother's place setting. "Go ahead and open it." Vivian stared at the envelope, like it might contain a live snake. Derek set down his wine glass. Brooke stopped mid-bite. The table was completely silent, except for the low crackle of the fireplace. Vivian slowly opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. It was a certified copy of the foreclosure notice on her home. She squinted at the legal language, then looked up at Derek with a confused expression. "What is this? Why does this say there is a second mortgage on my house for $450,000? I never authorized any additional mortgage." Derek's face went completely white. He opened his mouth but no sound came out. "Keep reading, Mom," I said quietly. Vivian pulled out the next sheet. It was a detailed forensic accounting summary showing the forged signature comparisons, the unauthorized credit lines, and the trail of funds leading directly into Derek's private brokerage account. "Derek took out that mortgage by forging your signature," I explained, keeping my voice perfectly even so every guest at that table could hear. "He also opened 2 credit lines, using your social security number for another $170,000. He has been using your house and your identity to fund a day trading addiction that has already burned through his entire personal savings. He is 4 months behind on the payments. The bank is going to take your house." The room erupted. Vivian dropped the papers onto her dinner plate, her hands shaking so violently that her wine glass tipped over, sending a river of red across the white tablecloth. She turned to Derek with a look of absolute horror. "Tell me she is lying," Vivian whispered. Derek could not meet her eyes. He stared at the spreading wine stain on the tablecloth and said nothing. That silence was his confession. Before Vivian could fully process the devastation, I pulled a second set of documents from my bag and slid them across the table toward Brooke. "While we are clearing the air, Brooke, you should probably know that Grant was fired from his hedge fund 8 months ago. He has been pretending to go to work every day. He has opened 11 credit cards in your name without your full knowledge and maxed out every single one. You are currently $300,000 in debt. Your apartment lease is 2 months behind. And that baby shower Mom is throwing you? The credit card funding it is about to decline." Brooke grabbed the papers with trembling hands. She scanned the credit card statements, the balances climbing into numbers she had clearly never imagined. She turned to Grant, who had gone completely rigid in his chair. "Grant, is this true?" Grant loosened his tie with one finger. "Brooke, I can explain." The market shifted. "I was going to tell you when I got back on my feet." $300,000, Brooke repeated, her voice climbing to a register that made the guests nearest to her physically lean away. "You put $300,000 of debt in my name?" The dinner was disintegrating in real time. 2 of Vivian's country club friends quietly excused themselves. A neighbor pretended to get a phone call and slipped out through the kitchen. The carefully constructed image of our perfect, successful family was collapsing like a house built on sand. Vivian, rather than confronting Derek or comforting Brooke, did what she always did. She pointed her fury at the safest target in the room. "You," she hissed, turning on me with pure venom. "You planned this. You came into my home on my special night and deliberately humiliated this family in front of my guests. How dare you?" "I did not forge anyone's signature, Mom. I did not open credit cards in anyone's name. I did not lie about having a job for 8 months. I just turned on the lights. Get out of my house, right now, and do not ever come back. You are dead to me, Elena. You were always a disappointment, and tonight you proved exactly why." I stood up calmly, buttoned my coat, and looked at Rosa, who was standing silently by the kitchen doorway. She gave me a small, firm nod. She was ready. "Before I go, Mom, there is one more thing you should know." I pulled out the final document. A certified bank statement from a trust fund held by a firm in Savannah, Georgia. I placed it face up on the table where everyone could see the balance printed at the bottom, $41 million. 6 weeks ago, Grandma Lucille left me her entire personal estate, $41 million. I have known about this money since before I called you about my car. I was never broke. I was testing you, and every single one of you failed. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I have ever heard. Vivian's eyes locked onto the number, Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Derek leaned forward, staring at the bank statement as if he could absorb the money through sheer willpower. Brooke covered her mouth with both hands. "The house you are about to lose to foreclosure?" I continued. "I already bought the defaulted debt from the bank this morning, through an anonymous holding company. I now legally own this property. You have 72 hours to pack your personal belongings and leave." Vivian crumbled. The matriarch who had spent her entire life ranking her children by their earning potential, who had dismissed my career and my character at every opportunity, who had refused to lend me $2,200 while spending $14,000 on flower arrangements, simply collapsed backward into her dining chair and began to cry. "Natalie, Elena, please," she stammered, so disoriented she could not even get my name right on the first try. "I am your mother. You cannot do this to me. I have nowhere to go." I looked at her, and for one brief moment, I searched inside myself for some residual ache, some childhood longing for her approval. There was nothing there. Just calm. "You told me to take the bus. You told me my career had a low ceiling. You told me to figure it out. So I figured it out." I turned to Derek. "And your wife, Rosa? I know about the offshore brokerage account. I know you rerouted her entire paycheck without her consent. I know about the $80 weekly allowance. My attorney has already filed divorce papers on Rosa's behalf. You will sign them voluntarily, or the forensic evidence of your bank fraud, wire fraud, and forged signatures goes directly to the FBI tomorrow morning. That is federal prison, Derek. Your choice." Derek signed the papers that same night in my attorney's office downtown. His hands shook so badly the signature was barely legible, but it was valid. I took Rosa home that night, but not to the apartment she shared with Derek. I drove her to a beautiful two-bedroom condo in a secure high-rise in the West Loop that I had purchased in her name 3 days earlier. It was fully furnished, warm, and filled with fresh flowers. I had stocked the kitchen with groceries and left a brand-new winter coat hanging by the front door. Rosa walked through the room slowly, touching the walls, the countertops, the soft throw blanket on the couch. When she reached the bedroom, she stopped at the window and looked out at the Chicago skyline, glittering in the December cold. "Elena," she said quietly, "how much did this place cost?" "It does not matter. It matters to me. 900,000, paid in full, property taxes covered for 15 years. It is entirely yours. Derek cannot touch it. No one can." She sat down on the edge of the bed and pressed her palms flat against the clean white comforter. She was quiet for a long time. "There is also a trust fund," I added gently, sitting beside her. $3 million. Set up to generate income for the rest of your life. You can keep working at the hospital because I know you love those babies. But you will never need a secret envelope of cash again. You will never have to justify buying groceries. You will never have to ask anyone's permission to visit your mother." Rosa broke. Not dramatically, not loudly. She just folded forward, pressed her forehead against my shoulder, and cried in deep, shuddering waves. It was the sound of someone releasing years of quiet suffering, years of being told she was not smart enough to manage money, not important enough to have her own car, not valuable enough to be treated with basic human dignity. I held her and let her cry until she was done. When she finally straightened up, she wiped her face and looked at me with eyes that were red but fiercely clear. "I drove to that repair shop because it was the right thing to do," she said. "I did not do it for money." "I know. That is exactly why you are the one who deserves it." The aftermath unfolded quickly. Derek lost his real estate license within 2 months. The bank fraud investigation is still ongoing. Vivian moved into a small rental apartment on the far side of the suburbs, humbled, but still too proud to admit she had spent decades worshipping the wrong children. Brooke filed for divorce from Grant when the full scope of the debt became clear. She moved back in with Vivian. They do not speak to me, and I am completely at peace with that. Rosa went back to work the following Monday. She walked into the hospital wearing new scrubs, brand new shoes, and the quiet confidence of a woman who finally belonged to herself. She enrolled in the nurse practitioner program she had wanted for years. She visits her mother in Pilsen every Sunday, driving her own car, on her own schedule, with no one monitoring the mileage. I kept living simply. I still work at the clinic because those animals need me, and I need them. I wear the same boots. I eat at the same diners. But every month, I write a check to a domestic violence shelter that helps women escape exactly the kind of financial abuse Rosa survived. And every year on December 11th, the anniversary of the night Rosa drove across Chicago with $1,600 in a crumpled envelope, I send her flowers with the same note. You showed up. That is everything. Have you ever had someone outside your family treat you better than your own blood relatives? Have you ever discovered that the golden child in your family was hiding a devastating secret? Share your story in the comments below. Do not forget to like and subscribe, and remember, sometimes the people who have the least are the ones willing to give the most.